Partition is segregating your data, dividing your data into multiple manageable parts and to improve the better performance, right? So when your data you have partitioned into small multiple manageable parts based on the condition, what condition you are going to frequently going to write, like are you going to check on country, or are you going to check on the date? So based on that condition we will be breaking our whole data into smaller manageable parts. So the advantage of having a partitions are that it will improve your performance. It will improve performance. Correct? It will improve your query performance. Right? So how to create a partitions? So yesterday I have shown you the syntax. How to create a partitions? How to create a partition? So if you see the document, so you have to create table name, and you will specify the table definition columns partitioned by whichever the column you want to partition, whichever the whatever the column you want to partition. Based on which column you want to partition, you will specify the column name there and data type of it, and remaining all the same, like a row for delimited, for terminated by blah blah blah, all those things. Right? There are two cases we have discussed. So one case is that you are getting the data with the separate files like this. You are getting the data separate files. You have an India file, fine, so you will not be having India country. So the case one is your partition column is not part of your table. The partition column, let's say this is the data which is going to for India data, the India related file, this is the data file. In this data file there is no column called India, so this file never this in this data, by seeing the data you cannot understand it is belong to India or not, but you can understand by seeing the file name or the source they have sent from the send, and they may give some flag, okay, this file is this file is like belong to India, this file is belong to UK, this file is belong to US, like that it will inform. Understand what I'm trying to say? So when you do your data does not have when your data does not have partition column partition column, but you know that that data is belong to a partition, what you will do, you will write into by using static partitions, right? Yes or no, guys? No, yes, maybe, no comment. Where is your Hive programs? How closed? Oh. Look at here. When data does not have a partition column, what we are doing? We will create a table and we will load it. We will load independently. We will load India data again in India by specifying hard coding the things, like see here. Here I'm showing your date. So you're hard coding it. Let's see the next example. Look at here. You are loading the data. When your data does not have a partition column, what you are doing? You are creating table the other columns which does with other columns, and your partition column is this, and row format delimited, rest of things are same as similar as your normal tables. But while loading the data, you will clearly specify that this is partitioned by, this is partition, this partition is this. You need to specify that whatever the data you're loading, whatever the data you're giving here, that data will go to that respective partition only. The partition is nothing but a directory in your HDFS. If you guys remember, the partition is nothing but a directory in a HDFS. Yes or no? Yes or no? What is a partition? Do you have any command like shutdown? Understand, guys? Let me start this other mission and show you. So what are the partition you are doing in the table? That is, the partition is nothing but a directory in inside the table directory. The whatever the partition you have created, a partition is nothing but a directory in the table, the table directory, right? So inside the data you will be keeping into a different files, right? So if your data does not contain the partition column, we have to explicitly load it, because we know that the data is coming in, this file is India file, and this file is UK file, this file is US file, this file is Japan, or whatever the file, right? So we need to explicitly load it. So what I'm trying to bring a point here, if your data does not have a partition column, you have to decide which data has to go where. You have to decide which data has to go here. In this case, so I know that whatever the file I'm giving here in from this path, whatever the data I'm giving from this path, I know this data is going to belong to India. I have to hard code here in the country saying India. Yes or no? Yes or no, guys? Guys, could you please respond to me? Don't keep silent. Yes, no, maybe. If you didn't understand, I'll repeat.
Understand, Anna. Understood.
Okay, so in this case, what is the limitation you see here? There may be a chance you are specifying, you are thinking that the data is India, but there is a chances you may load into UK because you are hard coding here. Limitation is you may commit human mistakes. What is a human mistake? Copy paste. So what you have done? Okay, the same query only. No, I know I don't want to type it. You'll copy, you'll paste it, and we'll just change one place. You forget to change other place. You change only one place, you forget to change this path. So what's happening here? The India data is getting into UK where you're doing a mistake, right? So we should not do that, right? To avoid that, what are the alternate options are what are the options are there? So now, as of now, we have seen a data which does not contain the partition column. Now we will go and see which has the partition column, which has the data with the partition column, right? Let's look at here, guys. Okay, these are some other example where I'm showing you, right? So different data limitation wrong, you are loading into UK, the India data you're loading into UK. So if you say that actually it is a UK data but it's showing you as India. So okay, now, so that you have a column, you have a data which has a partition column in part of your table, part of your data. Let me show you here. You are getting a data, you're getting a data, the data has a partition column, the data has a partition column. Let's say you are getting a data, this is your data. In this data I have something called date column, let's say, or I have a country column. So this data, what I will do, first I will load into some stage table. First I will load in some stage table. First I will load into stage table. So here I have ID, name, salary, country. Now here I created, here I will create here with the ID, name, salary, and country. Now here he'll be having values, right? I'll be having a data in this. Now this is my stage table. Because I have created stage table, I was having a data, I got the data with a partition column. I cannot directly load into partition table. So this data cannot be loaded directly into partition table, right? So what we have to do, we will create one stage table. From the stage table, we will fetch and load into partition table. We will we will fetch and we'll put into partition table. By using insert commands. What we will do, we will write a query such a way that insert into this table, select from here where condition, where country equal to India, all India records will be fetched into put into here. Where you insert into this table, select from here where country equal to UK, you will fetch all UK records into this. You will write one more insert command, insert into this table, select from here where country equal to Japan, you'll put into here. So what is happening in this case, you are writing multiple insert statements. You are writing so many insert statements. Look at here, guys. If your partition your data has a partition column, first we need to put into the staging table. We'll call this a stage table, or you can create as a some temporary table. Look at here, this has all the columns. It has all the columns. All the columns will be there. Then we will load the data into all the column. Then we will load all data into all the column. You can say it is a stage column, stage table. You'll call as the stage table. Then you create and put all the data into this. Because I'm dealing with the stock, it has all the, before, if you remember, yesterday we have deal with the stock only with a different date, right? Because the date was not part of the column. If you guys remember the data as last class data, your data was not part of the data. The date was not part of your data, right? So then what we did, based on the date, okay, this file has to go to this partition, this file has to go to this partition, where I have hard coded and have loaded. But here I'm getting the data with the date. I'm getting the data with the date. Look at here, symbol, stock date, open price, high price, low price, close price, volumes, some XYZ is there. Okay, so now when I have a data along with a partition column, I'll create a stage table first. I'll create a stage table. After creating a stage table, I'll create my partition table. I'll create my partition table similar way. So symbol, open price, you'll not be having a date as part of this. You'll not be having a date as this part of this. So the date will be a part of your your partition column, right? Now you will write insert command, insert override table stock partition, this, select from this. So what you are doing here, you are explicitly hard coding the things. Here what you are doing, so you are fetching from an existing table and are putting into a partition table. So similar, actually it is as little similar to the previous case. So but previous case, what we were doing, we were loading the files into partition table, but here we loaded the partition data, we loaded the raw data into a stage table. From the stage table, I'm putting into partitions. Nothing change. Okay, the only change is in the previous scenario, previous use case, where you don't have a date column, or where you don't have a partition column in the data. What we did, those data files we directly loaded into, by using load command, we loaded into partition table. But here the only difference is you have a partition column as the part of the data. Now what we doing, we are creating a one stage table, then we are loading the data into stage table. After loading the data into stage table, we are fetching from the stage table, nothing else. Okay, we are fetching from that table. Look at here, the statement, insert override into this table, partition table, and this is the partition column. You select from other table, which is the stage table. You select from the stage table. Let's say I have 100 dates, 100 different dates. You have to write 100 different insert commands, and you have to write 100 different insert commands. You have to write 100 different insert commands. So you are ending up with so many repeated script, right? That is also bad idea. That's also a bad idea to do that. Understand, guys? Are you guys able to follow what I'm explaining here? Anisha, Kishore, guys, respond to me.
Yes, Veer.
Yes, Veera. Understood.
Okay. Let me execute the program and show you. So very simple, as similar as the previous program only. You guys also can execute the program without any problem. It will not stop you. I mean, it will not give any error. The only thing is that you should have a data with you. Source.bash or C. Start all the services. Okay. So you need to create one stage table, and you need to create one partition table, and you need to insert like this. You need to insert like this. Understand? Understand, guys? So the input data is in this location. The input data is there in this location, and I have loaded into this table. I know that my partition table, my date contains this type of dates, and I'm clearly specifying that if you have this data, you put into this partition. If you have this data, you put into this partition. If you have this data, you put into this partition. So you are creating a multiple partitions by using a multiple insert statements. So where you are ending up with writing so many insert statements, right? So another example for the this is for the stock example. You can take another employee example here. Country one, country one only. Similar to that. So you what you will do first? You have a global data. You have a global data. The data has a country column. The data has a country column. So whatever the example yesterday we have seen does not have a country column in it, and so in this data we have a country column. So what we do? We created one stage table. We created a stage table along with the country. Look at guys here, along with the country. Then I created one partition table. I created one partition table by separating my country, and I loaded. I'm inserting statements. You can write all insert statements similar way. Insert India, UK, US, whatever it is. You can also use a where class. No doubt in that. You can also use a where class where country equal to this. Okay. And you can also create multiple partitions, like a partition inside the partition inside the partition, sub partitions, like a country, state, city. You can divide it. Okay. Understand, guys? So let's look at here. I have some data. I loaded into this employee table. I loaded into this employee table, and from this employee table, it has like this employee table has a country, state is there, city is there. Now I want to create a multiple partitions along with a city and state and country. I want to query where country equal to India and city equal to Bangalore and state equal to Karnataka. So this is my condition. So based on that, I want to partition the data. Based on that, I want to partition the data. How will I do? I will put all this data stays into stage table, all this raw data, global data, which has the partition columns. That the data I will put into stage table. From the stage table, I'll create one a partition table. It means that I will create one partition table by, see here, I have only ID, I have only name, I have only salary, I have department and date of join, and a partition by, I have a country, state, city, country, state, city, right? They are separated. Country, state, city, they are separated, and the data is available in this table. Now I need to bring from this table, I need to put into this table. How will I do? Insert override command by using this. Partition is country equal to India, state equal to Karnataka, city equal to Bangalore, and select ID, name, date of join, all these things from the employee test, where et dot country equal to India and et dot state equal to Karnataka, et dot, it is just alias name. So if you are aware of what you call uh, uh, SQL statements, you can easily write it. Understood, guys? Okay, so these are the two use cases we have seen, and two use cases means yeah.
So even if we give the partition columns, again we have to use the where clause.
So that's what, as I said, right? That's up to you.
Okay, okay.
It's not really,
So in
really
the
matter.
other case, we are not using where clause, right?
Correct.
The above example. Um,
Which one? Yeah.
if you scroll up,
Here I didn't use the where class. That's what. Either you can use the where class. That's what. Here multiple examples I have shown without where class and with where class.
okay, in which case we have to use where clause, like any specific cases?
See, you want to use specifically, want to explicitly specify in the select query. You can do that.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Okay. Next, static partition with the insert. This is whatever we have seen before, the same only. Here also we are writing insert statements. Here also we are writing insert statements. Similarly, select override from this table and select star from this, where country equal to US, where country equal to India, where country equal to UK. You can also write multiple insert statements. You will write with multiple what you call insert statements. That's really looks like you are writing so many insert statements. So while you are putting where condition, while you are partitioning, let's say you may say that, let's look at here, you are saying US, UK here, country, but you are fetching from Canada. Let's say Canada or something else. There are chances where you can commit the mistakes here as well, because you are hard coding the things. Here you are hard coding the things. So because of the hard codes, where there are more chances to commit a mistakes, right? Understand? So the limitation of your static partition is we may commit mistakes while loading or inserting data into partition table, and we need to write so many insert statements or load statements, right? Either you need to write so many insert statements, or either you need to write so many load statements, right? Because let's say you have 100 countries, each country have to write one load statement, or you have whole data is then stays stable, you have to write 100 insert statements to write it. So those are the limitations. To avoid those limitations, the Hive come up with something called dynamic partition. What is a dynamic partition? The dynamic partition is, it will dynamically loads the data into partition tables. How it will load? So for that, what you need to do, you have to enable dynamic partition is true. So it is actually by default is disabled. Why it is by default disabled? There may be a chances where we may create so many partitions, I will show you how we may create so many partitions. Let's say I have created a table with the employee ID, all those things. So in the dynamic partition, I specified my partition column is ID, employee ID. So what will happen? For each employee ID, one folder will be created in our HDFS. So what is the problem if we create so many partitions? What is the problem if you create so many partitions? Each partition is a directory, right? Yeah, each partition is a directory and each partition will contain some files. So the whole information has to maintain by whom? Your name node. So if you create so many partitions, it gives the burden on the name node. It gives the burden on the name node. So that is the reason by default the dynamic partition is disabled. So you have to enable and it is you have to write it, right? So even this dynamic partition has two type of dynamic partitions. One is strict mode. There are two modes in the dynamic partition. One is strict mode, another one is non-strict mode. One is strict mode, other one is non-strict mode. So these configurations all are will be available in your Hive site, or it will be there in Hive default. You copy and put into your Hive site and change it. So if you look at here, dynamic partition, we have to enable it, enabled. Then if you see partition mode, non-strict mode. The strict mode, the users must specify at least one static partition in case of the accidentally over this. And in strict mode, non-strict mode, all partitions are allowed to be dynamic. So what does that mean? Look at guys here. By default, it's non-strict mode, guys. Look at here. I have something called date column. I have something called date column. So if my dynamic partition is enabled by default, let's assume that. So when I'm putting into this, for each date one partition will be created. I created employee table or customer table, whatever it is. The table is nothing but a folder. So that's why I'm taking folder structure here. Now, when you create a partition on date, partition on date, what happened when you create a partition on the date? You will end up with creating so many partitions. Yes or no? For a year, 365 dates will be created. For 2 years, again multiple times, right? In this case, what's happening? You are creating so many partitions. So many partitions. It will give a burden on the name node. Yes or no? Right? So even that is the reason your dynamic partition by default it is not enabled. So when you go ahead and enable, there is something called dynamic partition mode. Dynamic partition mode. What is this dynamic partition mode? There are two type of modes. Strict, non-strict. So how to check where these partitions are there? Let's go back. Your Hive setup. Go to your Hive setup. Go to conf folder. Go to your template. Default file. Open this. Look at here. This is your configuration. Hive.execute.dynamic partition. Do you want me to allow the dynamic partition? Yes or no? True or false? And Hive.execute.dynamic partition. What is the default mode? The default mode is strict mode. Why it is the default mode strict mode? To avoid accidentally creating dynamic partitions. To avoid accidentally creating dynamic partition. Look at guys here. What is strict mode? What happened in the strict mode? Strict mode is always saying that strict mode. This is a little important guys, because while we're designing our partition we should understand this. So let's say I'm going to create, let's take here country. So instead of date I want to create country, and I have state, city. If I go with the non-strict mode here, what will happen? Look at here. If I go with the non-strict mode, what will happen? Let's say country India. One directory will be created for India, only India. I'm taking example for India. For non-strict mode, if I take country as India, and how many states are there? And each state again you will be having so many cities, right? And you will be having, it's a country level, it is a state level, inside the state city. It means you will end up with creating so many partitions. So many partitions. It means if you have a 300 countries, 300 folders will be created, parent folders will be created. Inside that, each country will have again 100 states, let's assume, or each country has states, like let's say minimum 50. I'm just giving an example guys. So 50 states are there. In each state has some again 30-40 cities are there. It means 300 into 50 states into 30 cities. How much it is? How much it is? 9,000 into 50. How much? You are ending up with these many partitions. So if you are creating these many folders, will it be burden on the name node or not? Will it be burden on the name node or not? Yes or no guys? Right? So
Yes.
to avoid this problem, that's what, there is a mistake. We may create mistakenly, accidentally. So to avoid this, something called strict mode is there. What is the strict mode is telling? The strict mode is telling at least one directory has to be hard coded. That should be a parent directory. Let's say now I'm going to show you how the partition. I'm not writing complete syntax. Partition country equal to India, and you can leave it state. You can leave it city. You can leave it, or you can hard code also, that also. Okay, you can leave it like this. It means only one partition is getting created. Under that only how many states are there? India, if you take 26 or 29 states are there. Inside that you can take each state you can take a city. Each state will have some cities. So it means that you know that you are going to create for a partition for only India. You are restricted to only India. You restrict to only India, right? So what is the valid cases for this? Let's assume that you are writing one more partition this way. Country, I don't want to hard code. State, I want to hard code, say California, and city I don't want to do. So this is invalid partition. So once a dynamic partition started, once the dynamic partition, if you're not hard coding means it's a dynamic partition. Once the dynamic partition started, you should not create a static partition. So you can write one more way. Like I don't want to write for, I want to restrict for country, and I want to restrict for state, and I want to leave city. So this is valid. but this is invalid. Understand guys, what is a strict mode? Strictly telling that you have to hard code at least one parent. Once the parent is hard coded, so but it should not start with the dynamic partition, it should start with the static partition only, because I am this, what is the major number here? The parent is a major number, right? So to restrict it, so if you are going to create, you are aware of it, that I'm going to create this many. Your hard coding means you are aware of that. I need this many partitions, so you knowingly are doing it. It's not automatic, right? So that's why by default your dynamic partition is non-strict mode, sorry, strict mode, sorry. Your default is your dynamic partition is strict mode. Okay, and let's look at here one more. There is another two more configurations we need to understand. So that is something called maximum dynamic partitions. How many maximum dynamic partitions we can create? So maximum number of dynamic partitions allowed to be created in the total. Okay, that's you can specify here. By default is 1,000, but if you want to change to 300, you want to change to 100, you can go ahead and change it. And other one is each node, per node, maximum number of dynamic partitions allowed to be created in each data node. Okay, so you can use, you can also change this configuration. By default it's 100. Any doubts guys about the dynamic partition? Any doubt about the dynamic partition? Quick, please guys, are you guys able to follow or confused, or you want me to repeat one more time? Anisha, Ganesh, Kishore, Masood.
It's clear, Veera.
I hope everyone is clear, right? So this is the configuration changes. We know this now. We know it. If you do configuration changes in a Hive site, it is for all other jobs. What are the jobs are submitting after the changes, it will impact. But you want to set for only your terminal. Once your terminal, this is the way which I have shown you in the last class as well. So you can set for only your setting, your terminal specific. So that will be available till the terminal is alive. So as soon as the terminal is closed, this all these properties will be go back to the default. Even though you set it here in the terminal, once you terminal close and restart it, I mean close and reopen the terminal, your complete these configurations will go off. So how to create a dynamic partition? We know that we have one staging table. Now we have a staging table, and from the staging table I have to fetch the data. So I have a dynamic partition which is a partition table. Look at guys, only one insert statement which will take care of all those things. Insert override table, partition, and date. Whichever the date you want to specify, you specify the date and leave it. It will fetch from the all the columns, and it will put into respective columns. It will fetch from those tables and put into respective columns. So with a single insert statement, you are putting into all the data is fetching and putting into this partition table based on the data is available in your stock table. Understand guys? Okay, any doubt here? Yes, no, or maybe doubt, you guys have a doubt or not? So that's why that is the where we were avoiding the mistakes, human mistakes. You can directly fetch from the an existing table, and you no need to hard code any value, right? You no need to hard code any value, you can directly fetch from other thing. Okay, so you guys have a stock data already available in the drive, or even I have given the PDF available this data. Copy paste the data and start doing this all exercises. So I want everyone has to send me all these exercises by today evening. Okay, you can see here, you can see here, all are, you can see here, all examples are there with multiple options, multiple options. So different examples are there with the multiple options. And look at here, multiple option, multiple countries, country and state, multiple partitions. You can have any number of multiple partitions, right? As I said, which partition you're going to use, whether it should be a dynamic or it should be static, we will decide. Understand, Anisha, Ganesh? Okay, please go through this. You can easily understand this dynamic partition part. So tomorrow we will start something called bucketing. Tomorrow we'll call something called bucketing. And also, as I said before, you can also alter the existing partition. Look at guys here, we can also alter the existing partition. Let's say I already have one partition with the USA and Canada. I want to give new path for it. It was referring old data. I want to change the new data. So I can use the alter and use the set command. I can change the partition for it. And if you want to remove, you can use the drop. You can just remove the partition, right? If you want to archive, you can archive the partitions. So any, these are all operations are possible with this. And as I said before, you can either, you can use a -e option or a -f option. -e for executing a specific query, -f is for executing a bunch of queries which is there in a single file. Okay, so that's it guys for today. So we will see in the next class bucketing is another important topic, so please don't miss. To understand the bucketing, I want you to execute on these partitions, clear? Thank you guys, have a great day.